Take 5,920 fucking 3. Yeah, I got the nerd glasses on today. I gotta be able to see. Come on, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. This is 2025. We're like 1 year behind the 20th year of this YouTube channel. Assuming something socio-political doesn't take it down in the next, I don't know how many years. Anyway, today we're going to talk about guitars because we need some guitar content for the channel, and I haven't made any in about 10,000 years. So, here we go. We're going to talk about the Ataricaster, as I now call it most of the time, although it's also known as the Guitari 2600. It's also known as the, what other stuff? There's like 5,000 names for this damn thing. So anyway, before it seems like I'm brushing it off, let's talk about the long history of this thing, because it goes way further back than now. It's not like I just suddenly woke up one day and went, oh, I'm going to build a guitar in the shape of the Atari Fuji logo. No, this was a long time in coming, and it wasn't actually expected to be incoming for me. So back in 2001, I was an avid retro game collector. Big fan of the Atari 2600, as some people should probably know by now, considering how many Atari videos I've made in the last several months. You could say this fed back into that, and that kind of, you know. But my original idea for this guitar was very basic. It was basically going to be like a Flying V. Now, where did the idea come from? Well, me and my friends sat at lunch, and we would all joke around about how ludicrous the Flying V name was. It was like, oh, it's a Flying V? Yeah, let's make... I was like, I'd seen the Flying Pac-Man guitar. Yeah, it's a thing. Not my make, somebody else's. And then there, after the Flying Pac-Man, there was the... we were like, oh yeah, well, if you drilled holes in it and didn't put all the Pac-Man shit on it, it would be the Flying Cheese. Oh, you make one wedge shape, Flying Swiss Cheese. There you go. Then the next one of us said, yeah, you know how the Dean ML is like, you know, it has that arm that sticks out kind of like a woman standing, doing that whole spread out pose, you know, models and shit. Yeah, make the Flying Woman. Yeah, there we go. Where do you plug in the input jack? Between her legs. Yeah, welcome to the world of horny teenage boys. Like 30 years ago. Before woke came about and taught us some manners. Anyway, after that one, another friend went, oh, well, what about the Flying Ath, you know, with a butt fucker pickup? I was like, oh, dear God. And then I was like, you know, the Atari-Logo, it actually looked kind of cool like that. And you know, being a video game collector, I thought it was cool. So I was in the band Lithium at the time. And I was like, it's funny, in the band that played the least amount of shows out of any one of the lot of them that I've been in, save for maybe Ancient Tongues. Yeah, I mean, here I was making these big plans for these crazy, showy stage guitars I could build myself. I mean, we had all kinds of ideas. I like flip-flop paint and all kinds of weird ideas I was trying out. I was making guitars out of a door. Like one of those multi-layer ones. I was going to make sort of like a H804 style guitar with a reinforced center section. I had a lot of wild ideas back then. So anyway, this was one of them, but it was completely different in execution than what I was thinking I was going to do. I was like, okay, we're going to create... okay, so first and foremost, none of this shit was going to be down here. It was just going to be the logo part. So kind of like that, if you could imagine. And then there was going to be 2 humbuckers instead of 1. A 3-way switch, 1 volume, 1 tone, 2 pneumatic bridge, stop tailpiece. That was what there was going to be in there. And then it was going to have like a 22 fret Gibson scale neck. And then it was going to be, the body shape was going to be inverted for the headstock. Because if it worked for Dean, it would work for me. So... you know, it's going to be like the Dean ML headstock. I figure if he can make the strings fan out like that, what's stopping me from doing it? So, that was the original idea. Then Lithium came and went, and I kind of didn't really put the idea on mothballs. I just kind of gave up on it. And then skip ahead about almost like 20 years. I'm working for another company doing a computer refresh that I'm managing. And while I'm doing that, I'm like, okay, well, what do we do with all the old pallet wood? And they're like, we don't know. We don't know what we're going to do with our old pallet wood. So I was like, okay. So I brought home like 3 pallets in the back of my truck, spent an hour on those pallets, just taking them apart, throwing the nails in a freaking mason jar to recycle them. And then just ripped all these pallets apart, and I started making guitar bodies out of it. I mean, there's even one hanging back there. I don't know if you can see it, or if it's hanging low enough. It's blue, and it's hanging in front of Metallica Ride the Lightning. You do the math. So anyway, I started making all these guitars out of pallets just on my patio. It was a fun thing to do in my free time. And at the time, I was feeling kind of like I needed to start doing more shit outside because I'd been living in Washington for years and staying in the house because it rains all the time, and when it's not rainy it's cold, and when it's not cold it's warm outside. But then everybody looks at you like you got 3 heads for being outside in 96-degree weather that's otherwise comfortable. I'm like, yeah, I spent whatever. Anyway, not to go off on a tangent, so while I'm building that, I'm left over with a scrap of wood roughly this size, and I'm thinking to myself, well, what am I going to do now? Should I make a double neck Steinberger? Or wait a second, there's no headless neck, no headless tremolos that I know of. It's like, maybe should I make a, I don't know, and then I thought, oh crap, that old Atari design from high school. Let's take a look at that idea. So I start sketching it out on there, and my wife's like, that looks cool. I'm like, okay. So, you know, we have this body now that's shaped roughly like a roughly like a sorry game piece. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And I start drawing all this shit out on top of it. And I was like, that'd be kind of neat. Then I like let it sit for a few years because I had no idea what the hell to do with this damn thing. I was like, okay, what now? We'll make a charcuterie board out of it. I just paint the Atari logo on top of it, and then use it until it like cracks in half from my crappy joinery work because I had to plane it flat by hand. I mean, this thing was really kind of not meant to happen, but meant to happen, I guess. So I build it again. So then I go back, and we moved into now the place I have now where I have a proper workshop. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I pull this out, and it's like, it was just a flat piece of wood. That's all it was. I was like, well, I have all these warped and fucked up boards. Let's go ahead and cut them up and just try and make the logo shape out of them. And if we, fail, it'll be a cool wall hanging. And if it ends up good, it'll be a really cool guitar. So what ended up happening is I got on eBay, and that's where I got the idea. Let's make it headless. Because China started making all these cool necks, all these headless necks. I did a whole bunch of butchery to this one to make it cool. And all these new headless tremolo systems. And I was like, all right, let's use those. So I went ahead and started making the body and putting it together. And I had a flat sheet of this construction wood. And I cut that into pieces and tried to get the gaps even. And it came out looking really cool. This was really a guitar of me literally cobbling shit together as I just found it. It was like, originally I thought, hardtail, no. Let's put it one of those headless necks on it. And I was like, should I do a tremolo? No. I used to have one of those first act rise of the 6-string plastic guitars, and I was like, what a waste of a hex pickup. I can't use it in anything. Now I have an idea. That's where the big idea with this really came from. This was really kind of a renaissance of an old idea that had some new purposes. Now, first and foremost, let's take a look a bit at the design, and I talk about the features on this guitar. Here we go. So first off, of course, you have the Atari-shaped body here. This has 2 little hollow grooves in there. And I was wandering around Five and Below one day and saw they had cheap strip lighting, so check this shit out. Yeah, we have a freaking light show built into the damn guitar. A freaking light show. Oh yeah, and I can control it via this remote here too. So we have a light show inside the guitar, and how it works is this Five and Below LED lighting runs all the way around the body. It even runs through the cavities inside and along the edges. Now I might come up with a better way of protecting this stuff, but overall, I mean, I've done 3 or 4 revisions and it worked out well. The next thing was, okay, how are we going to control this stuff? So then I just off the cuff decided, in tribute to the Atari VCS and its 6 switches, my favorite version, the heavy 6er, I thought, all right, let's do 6 of these aluminum vintage style switches down here. Yeah, these are all old school 70s switches from the 70s. They're very similar, but they're one thing cooler than any modern switch I've ever seen. They're triple pole, double throw. Which, man, I can do crazy shit like this. Yeah, I can power on elements. So let's talk about what the switches do. So then I got ambitious. I thought, okay, so we have this one over here, which turns a light show on and off. This one's a stereo mono switch for our stereo output jack back here. This one's our cartridge power on and off. Yes, this fits cartridges in there. Yeah, when I designed this, that's what I had in mind. But not to play video games. Oh no, we'll talk about that in a moment. So that's your power switch for your cartridge port. Over here, you have these 2 switches are the sustainer system. You have one switch right here that turns the sustainer on and the screen lights on, and then this switches between fundamental and harmonic mode. And you can tell which is which. I think the plan is to have that be fundamental and that be harmonic. And then you turn that off. And then here we have a built-in fuzz / built-in boost that just beats the shit out of the freaking amplifier and gives this guitar oodles of distortion. So that's what our switches are right here. Oh yeah, and our light show can be plugged into a USB so I don't end up wasting battery. Yeah, so when it's down here, when the switch is in the up position, it's in the display position. So when I flip the switch up, I can run the entire light show off of this and not use up one of the 4 9-volt batteries in this guitar. Yes, that's how many batteries are in this damn thing. Now let's talk about the more conventional guitar controls. Of course, first off, to have controls, you have to have a pickup. This is what the first act pickup really is right here. These single 6 poles are a stacked humbucker. What it is measures about 8 to 9 kilo ohms resistance. And then it sounds like a Telecaster, which is what I had in mind for a Atari style guitar anyway. It was to have that twangy sound that sounds almost kind of like the video game system does when it's making some of its more obnoxious noises. And then down here, each one of these individual pairs of metal pull pieces is an individual pickup for each string, about 800 ohms each. Not even an ohm, not even a kilo ohm, just about 800 ohms. And then each one of those are fed out the cartridge port back here that feeds to a circuit board inside the guitar. And then that circuit board is going to be whatever kind of synthesizer, stereo, guitar, whatever I choose to have. Which then brings us over to the regular controls, most familiar. We have your volume control right here, 500K logarithmic pot with treble bypass. We have a 3-way Gibson style leaf switch that I milled my own tip for to look kind of like the rest of the switches on the guitar. And then this is your kill button. So I have the kill button function on it. And what this switch does is it doesn't switch pickups. The intention is going to be that when it's back here, it's just this stacked humbucker. When it's here, it's the stacked humbucker combined with whatever's coming out of this, whether it's a synthesizer or this pickup to get some tonal variation. If I flick it up here, then it's just the hex pickup and whatever the heck is mounted back here. That's the goal, is to be able to blend all that stuff into the guitar. Looking up here, this isn't a pickup. This is the sustainer driver. This is my own original sustainer driver design. It's very basic, very cheap. I did it, and it works pretty darn well, considering. It runs through the groove here and then down into these control panels here. I made the plugins for the sustainer circuit modular, so then I could actually design my own circuits using a breadboard that I developed. So this is the development board for it. It's just a breadboard stuck to a piece of plastic, and it just plugs in here like so. And there you go. I can make my own circuits. There's one of the breadboarded sustainer circuits on there at the moment using a basic LM386 chip, and I had some wires running from this thing out here so I could go ahead and wire it into the switch, so I could just basically recreate the same thing using an actual etched circuit board that I made on my own at home, because I can do that. And yeah, that's the goal. And that's going to be the same thing for any of the other cartridges I decide to build for this thing. They're all going to be designed and built using this breadboard that plugs in with its own unique pinout that only I know. Now we're going to talk about the vibrato, which some of you commented on. You're like, it's not going to hold up. This is a Geiger W1003 headless vibrato unit. I have a video where I talk about this a little bit. Since I've used it, it's actually not that bad. It stays in tune pretty well. It was a little tricky to get the routing right. It uses a Steinberger style route. You might notice everything sits kind of high on the guitar because I just mounted it at the top. I modified it by putting 2-inch long wood screws back here. The saddles are like a combination of Stratocaster and Steinberger saddles by design. Each of these are your tuners. You have the little magnetic doohickey here that you stick in the back and you turn it to tune the guitar and make it easier. I actually use a hex wrench most of the time for that. All this here is silver leaf. This is my own label for it. Done with water slide decal. I bought this neck on eBay. It originally had like a harp looking shape at the top, and we just ground that all off and then put this Geiger headpiece on here that I had to remill so the truss rod was accessible. And I did something different on this than most of these guys do. I put a very extreme breakover angle over the 0 fret so that it, feels just right and it doesn't buzz. Because you can see I don't get much of a buzz at all out of this guitar. And it has the Floyd Rose locking nut here, which makes it a little more normal. It's 25.5-inch scale, 24 frets. The back of it looks like this. That cavity right there in the middle does is where the circuit board is and all the circuitry stuff for the synthesizer pickup. Over here is all the light show and synthesizer power circuitry and switch control. And then this is the mono guitar box, which has the sustainer and built-in op amp section, and that's just the regular guitar section. Some plans. I'm planning to build some side pieces that cover over this and make this strip of lighting just a little better protected. I also plan to maybe put some reflective tape in there to get a little more reflection off of it. I have 2 remotes, both connect to each side to give it that full 70s vibe. To kind of show you, the remote even works while it's attached to the guitar. So let's go ahead and set this up here and kind of show you what that is. So when I flick the switch up here, I can change the light show around between these different settings. Like we have that one, like we have this one, and all these others. They sometimes work a little better than other times. I can also unvelcro it from the side of the guitar like that, and I can control it that way. So like this button here, flashes it through the red, green, blue colors. This one does sort of this is my favorite, the pulsating effect. And this one does a fade, and this one is strobe. And then I can kind of change it to individual colors like red, turquoise, blue, white, brighter turquoise, orange. So I can have any color I want for the mood of the music. On the flash, you can make it probably, let's see how fast it goes on that fade one. See if I can get it just a little more faster. Yeah, now we're starting to make it look like the chalice at the end of Adventure. How fitting! So that's kind of the idea on this guitar, is it's meant to be sort of a prototype idea of cool stuff. Of course, I had to do some modifications. This screw fell out and got lost, so I put a threaded screw in there, which actually holds the saddles better. I put a piece of metal in here as a bushing to hold this lock in place. Because usually when I'm playing and using the whammy bar on this guitar, I usually have that slip back there so I don't impale my palm on it. Like Pete Townsend did his hand on a whammy bar once. But right here it's locked so it can't be moved. That makes tuning the guitar that much easier. Down here is where your adjustment is. It's actually counterintuitive, so I think it's like clockwise loosens the spring and counterclockwise tightens it. Really interesting. Guitar is very comfortable to hold and to play. I was holding this and playing it for hours one night. So now we'll kind of do a little bit of a demo of the different sounds this thing can do. I'm gonna plug it into my computer up here. I have my 386 with its sound card thing there. Alright, so right now we're playing it through my compact with the computer speakers on it. So you can even use it for a light vibrato when it's locked. Let's turn this on. So it's an LM386 based fuzz. Let me show you what happens if I flip this down. Makes it considerably louder. It's picking up buzz off my CRT monitor over here. So that's like my own distortion unit built into there. And if I flip that on, I usually will flip that on before I flip that switch. This right here, the sustainer, is the next part that's going to be built. The way this works is you got this switch here, of course, like I said, turn it on, and this is harmonic and fundamental mode. It's with all the lights on, it looks pretty darn stunning. I must say so myself. So yeah, some of the projects still coming up for this. I need to make a first cartridge for this. The idea, I might also cut some of this section out so this fits flush. So I might have to do some routing and cutting some more. That's one of my other ideas with this, is to get this whole scenario where it fits nicely. Talking about the cartridges that I plan to use on this. So they're all going to be the size of a standard Atari cartridge in width and length. But I have 3 different ideas for what kind of carts. Type 1 cartridges will be this. They'll be basically a regular Atari cartridge shell type deal. And you just plug it in back there and it plugs into the guitar, but except it'll be like down here. And then all the controls are guarded there so you don't knock them down. This would be for like your simple cartridges, things like stereo guitars, simple fuzz it up to square wave type stuff. The Type 2 cartridges are double high, so they'll be level with this. And then those will be something more like a complex Arduino or a tiny type synthesizer. And they'll be designed more for the idea of using the guitar as a synth. And then I have an idea that I might be making sort of a giant Type 3 type module here. And what that would do is that would plug in here, and then there'd be a whole extra box here with cleared areas to allow the jacks and the strap button to be cleared. And the way that would work is that would allow me to have like really complex, fancy analog multi-timbral synthesizers built into the guitar. And it would attach the back like a Nantan laptop battery with a pair of thumb screws. That's my ideas for the guitar for these synth circuits. But yeah, that's the whole idea here, is basically it's a modular guitar synthesizer where I can switch the effects out using a Atari cartridge type system on it. If I really like how this turns out, I'll probably build another one that's not shaped like the Atari-Logo. It'd probably be all compatible with all the same modules, which would be really easy to do, but it'd be a little more professional and a little cleaner made than this. It's like a rough prototype of the idea. So that's kind of, you know, it's a little temperamental because it's cold. That kind of gives you an idea of what this guitar is for. I mean, it's basically me experimenting with electronics. So there's always going to be little improvements. My next plan, though, is to cut this so the cartridges are all flush with the back like this. And that'll be perfectly fine. And the reason why I kind of want that anyway is I kind of want to have it where my cartridges are actually plugged into the guitar, and it's not somewhere where it's going to be easily interfered with, you know, because if you try to set in a stand as it is now, like this, the cartridge hangs out about like a centimeter, and that's going to interfere with it sitting down, and it'll break cartridges and put strain on this connector here. So, and in order to do that, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cut about that much off inside here, so I have to be careful of lighting. I can probably do that carefully using a Dremel or something, and then once that's done, then what I do is back here I'm going to route this section further back and stick the cartridge port a little further in. These are my cartridge guides. That's another bit of my metal work I did on this. The idea is that while the cartridge is in there, this supports it and holds it in place, so then when I'm playing live, or if I'm just, you know, rocking out really hard, it doesn't just fall, my synthesizer unit doesn't just fall out of the guitar. So it's kind of the whole thing. But yeah, next bit of stuff, improve the cartridge interface area a bit, and probably going to redo this section here too. We're going to probably put a And another reason I made this section modular, and this is the part I didn't talk about, is I'm thinking about trying one of those Chinese synthesizer modules in it, or Chinese sustainer modules in it, and see how well it does compared to my own LM386 bass driver system, see if I can get a little more power out of it. I also might want to put this in some kind of adhesive so it doesn't... I've been having some problems because I use just regular wax potting on it, and it's not particularly happy that way. So, yeah. Hopefully that'll give you a good idea on this, where this is going. So anyway, I think it's time I sign out and say see you in the next video.